Okay, hi everyone. Before we get started, if you could turn your camera on, that would be great.
Wait, I have one more thing. I have one thing to say. I have one thing to add. For those of you who want the meeting info, like the recording of the previous two classes, they will be published on the YouTube channel right after this class. So yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna get started then. So, welcome to week 3 of the Innovator Summer Camp. So, I'm Michelle, as Zihan stated before, and I'm your last instructor. So, how to take advantage of this particular class, I will be showing some Google Slides that are examples of other app proposals and going over some submitted homeworks. So if you could follow along and kind of use the techniques I go over in class and do the same for your document, that would be most beneficial for you. And from the homework Google form, there actually weren't that many submissions compared to the amount of kids who have been in these classes. So if you could submit your homework, that would be best, because if you don't, obviously we can't give you feedback on anything. So yeah. Okay, so yeah, today, week 3. So today's topics, I'm first going to do a very short recap of week 2, and then I'm going to go over 3 homework assignments and homework submissions, and I'll be kind of giving a little bit of feedback live on them, and they are anonymous. So if it's yours, don't worry about it. No one's going to know. So yeah. And then I'm going to give some advice for further improvements, as well as go over some common mistakes that people run into when they're creating their app proposals. And then I'm going to showcase my app proposal for the MIT 2023 Appathon. And I'm going to walk through the components of that and then give you a template which you can use to create your own Google Slides. That will be the homework that's submitted after this class. And then we will be judging those forms, or those slides. And we will pick top 3 for, you'll be able to win some prizes. So yeah, please submit your homework. And then, so it's basically what I just went over. Today's class goals. So what we're going to do today, we're going to go over some common errors, identify and implement improvements in some app features, and then develop a comprehensive Google Slides for your app proposal from week 1. Okay, so I'm just gonna do a little recap of week 2 for anyone who wasn't able to make it. So we went over some creative uses of MIT App Inventor. There was a walkthrough of an app using App Inventor, and they went over some basic elements. We showcased some past winners, and we had homework feedback for, yeah. Okay, now I'm gonna give some feedback on 3 anonymous proposals that we got as homework submissions from week 1. So proposal 1 here, problem, I'm going to let you guys read this for yourself. I already read this before. So they just want to create an app that can kind of sustain the elderly's ability for hand-eye coordination, because it does decrease over time. And everything checks out here. I really like this issue, and it's something I don't see a lot of solutions for. So from my perspective, I do think it's pretty innovative and a very unique problem to target. And the solution checks out scientifically. Games have been scientifically proven to help with hand-eye coordination in all ages. Target audience, correct. Main features and functionalities. This is good so far, but I would have liked to see a bit more like specific details, maybe like some different elements you used at MIT App Inventor, because if you draft it that way, it will make creating the app easier, because you'll have an idea of what exact elements you want to include. Unique, interesting feature, games can be played by all ages. That is very nice because it's very inclusive so that anyone can use it. I like that. But one thing I do see missing is the limitations slash challenges that we had as a requirement for app proposals. So if you don't have that listed from the get-go, it can make it hard to predict issues. And when you're, say, if you're doing this for a competition that's coming up and you have 3 weeks to create an app and you don't, you're not aware of any challenges or limitations that you're going to be able to run into while you're making the app, it can kind of stretch your timeline, which will make it difficult for you to plan when to do what. And that can make deadlines very hard to meet. So yeah. But overall, I do really like this app idea. But the one issue or the biggest issue is just that the limitations is not listed. So yeah. Okay, so proposal 2. I see that it has all the different components we asked for. So there's a problem statement, solution, features, and then challenges. I think this is a very unique problem to target, and I really like that. And solution, I would say I think it definitely will work, but try to come up with a way that really sets it apart from other planning apps. Because I know there's different platforms that exist. Like, I think it's called Notion, where like you can really take creative liberties with how you want to set up your creative space and different like, and I think a lot of people they just draft in like Google Docs and stuff, and maybe in who the creator for this in your Google Slides that it's going to be homework for from today. Maybe just include like how this really will set it apart from pre-existing solutions for this. Like maybe do a compare contrast elements in your Google Slides so that it's clear for anyone looking at the app proposal to be able to see, oh, like I like this new aspect this app can bring to help new writers getting started. I see features like all of this, challenges, limitations. Okay, so complex to create, that is one of the common mistakes slash challenges that people run into when they're especially when they just start creating apps. I'll go over common mistakes later on, but take note of that. Cost, if anyone can join, monitoring. Yeah, so for I guess one little question I would have about this, the creator of this, if you aren't here or you don't want to answer, that's perfectly fine. But one thing I do see is that when you say if anyone can join, that's a little bit confusing for me because that narrows the target audience down a lot. So, because I think anyone can be a new writer, right? So when you say that, I think it's a bit, for me, it's a bit confusing on what you mean by if anyone can join, because can't anyone write if they want to? So yeah, that's one thing. It does not extend to publishing issues. Okay, yeah. Yeah, those are just the few things that I spot when I look through this. I mean, I don't write, so I don't know the challenges that writers do run into, but as an outside person, those are the issues I would see if I saw this app. On to proposal 3. So I see that there are 3 ideas, which I think we specified that we wanted you to pick the best one possible. So if like to come up with 3 and then pick your favorite app, but we can go through all 3 and that's fine. Um, okay. Okay, my issue with I really like number 1 and like what it targets because I personally do get distracted a lot when I study, and music and having a filtered group of people to work with, even if it's online, that definitely does help. But one thing I do see is I don't quite, let me see what the application's name is. Okay, Life At. That's what I use. And Life At kind of does exactly this. Um, so that's one thing. So if you wanted to go ahead with this idea, you would have to find a way to really set it apart from like Life at or any other platforms out there that allow you to do this. Sorry, I just saw a message. Okay, how do we access the homework Google form? I believe that link was sent out, but I can send it again in the chat. Let me see. Actually, Zihan, could you send that to everyone in the chat here?
Yep, I
Since
got you.
okay, thank you. And then I'm not sure with the Google form. Okay, yeah. So both questions are about the Google form. Okay, yeah. If you weren't able to access it and you couldn't submit anything because of that, that's perfectly fine. It happens. But yeah, just follow along with what I'm doing for these app proposals and go through yours the way I would, or try to follow the way I'm thinking about it. And yeah, and then you can still go ahead with the Google Slides.
All right.
Um, is someone unmuted?
So. So.
Um, okay, there. Okay, let's go back to this. So number two, another idea is a makeup app that can thumbs and points. I really like this because that is a very common issue that some applications are built to try to eliminate. So I see, I really like this idea, and I can definitely relate to the issue it's trying to solve here because, you know, there's mornings when you wake up and you can't decide what to wear. And it definitely takes up a lot of time in the morning, especially when you have school and you're on a time crunch. Um, I like the problem and the solution that it's proposing, but my one question is I just don't really see. I mean, you could use AI to help, but this would be complex to implement. Um, so sorry, there's something in the chat. Okay. Zihan, could you take care of that? Like the no longer accepting responses.
Yeah, I got you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so going back, yeah. So the one issue I see is I just don't. This would be complex to try to implement, and I think outfits are so subjective, and I think different people who you might think they all look good in maybe one style, they could dress differently, and they could all look good. So I'd say this is very idealistic to have an app that could eliminate these issues. But I just don't quite see how it could be done in a way that doesn't like show any bias or fully accommodates to what somebody wants. So yeah. Last idea. Okay. So, okay, my one issue, I guess the biggest red flag that pops out to me when I read this is it says it's similar to password managers, depending on what application you use. Like mine's, I have a MacBook, so Apple has a built-in one for saving passwords. It says this one's even better, but I'm not doubtful that there are definitely improvements you can make to it, but one, I do think it's a very like this problem is not very prominent. Like I feel like the last two are very prominent issues that I think a lot of people can relate to. But when it says invade your privacy, like these the already existing like password managers should be doing that. Like unless it's like parental controls, but then that's a case by case basis, like depending on the family. So that's different. And then all these features it's saying or that are listed, they're almost, yeah, they're identical to the ones I see that Apple has in their password managers. So I personally think, since there are three here and creating all three will not be very realistic in the timeline we have right now. I mean, if you want to explore all three, go ahead, feel free, obviously. But I would say one is probably the most realistic in the sense of being easier to create, and being like innovative. Like I think there are definitely some new aspects you can bring into an app like this, even though like LifeHat exists. It can like LifeHat, like when I use it, there are some issues that like pop up, like the music playlist, it's very set and you can't do a lot. There's not a lot of creative freedom, I think, with that. And they organize, I believe they organize the rooms by not by subject for school. They organize it kind of by like some of them are like if you want to see a celebrity, could like study with a celebrity, that's how they organize it. So it's a little different. So I think if you organize it by subject, that will be like an innovative way, um, or an innovative addition to an application like this. But yeah, number three is just it's very hard to come up with any new elements to add because so many of these password managers already exist. And it's not a very like you can't take a lot of creative liberties for that specific issue. Um, yeah. So yeah. And then number two is just it's doable. It's just it'll be a lot harder. And because outfits and fashion is so subjective, so that'll be hard to try to do. But yeah, that's just my opinion. Okay. I'm gonna head back to the slides now. So, okay, so some common mistakes. I saw a few of these as I was going through, but some of these are also for you when you create the app. Like, for example, neglecting user experience, that's for when you're really planning out how you want the app to work and like how the different screens like go from one to the other. So number one, lack of market research. Um, that we saw through one of the examples, like there's just like the password managers because something like a lot of applications that are very, very similar to what was written in the proposal already exist. So that's going to be hard to kind of break free of because those already exist and people already use them everywhere. Like Apple has theirs implemented everywhere. So people are not going to want to have to go through extra steps and want to get another application just to manage their passwords when they have built-in ones, depending on the computer they're using. Um, Misunderstood user needs. I have not seen this yet, but this is more of like, actually, I take that back. This could manifest if like for the fashion app, like coming up with outfits, this could manifest in that app if one was trying to create that. So you can misunderstand like especially if you're implementing AI and it's not accurate, it can misunderstand what the user wants in their outfit, and that can cause some disagreement between the user and the app. So they might not want to use it anymore because they think they can style themselves better than AI can. So yeah, that's one thing. And then overcomplicating the idea. I've not seen this yet because there are no apps created, obviously, but it's just something to watch out for. Don't try to implement too many things on one screen. Like if you want to have an app with many functionalities, try to create like separate screens for separate functions. Because when users try to use it, it'll get very confusing because you will need to explain what each screen does. So if you're trying to implement like a chatbot and a GPS function on one screen, it might get confusing. And if they're using on like a small phone example, like a lot of text might be crowding the space and become very hard to read. So yeah. Yeah, ignoring technical constraints. That kind of goes along with like the outfits idea, just because I don't think AI has the best track record for creating outfits so far, at least. I mean, it's very hypothetical. Like you could ask ChatGPT to like generate an outfit for me depending on blank, blank, blank criteria.
Wait, okay, we have your cool up. Yeah, it's pretty cool. What's that?
Okay, sorry about that. But so yeah, that's something. So ignoring that there are some technical issues or some technical challenges that are going to be very, very, very difficult to overcome, especially for an application if you're using App Inventor. Like this is not, it's not the same as if you were to code something from scratch would be a lot more difficult, but that it might be more accurate. Or if you implement an API key from the like ChatGPT 4.0, it might be more accurate. But there's going to be some biases that you can't take out. So yeah. And then poor problem definition. Um, this one I saw a few times. So if you're like you say you want to do something, but it's very vague. Like if you're saying like if I say like I want to focus better, um, that's very vague. Like do you want to focus better when you're studying? Do you want to focus better when you're working out? Do you like when you market yourself, especially when you're writing app proposals, um, like it's best to have it organized, like have like problem statement, solution, etc. And then for a problem statement, really have some background. Like say this is like me coming up with statistics. Don't this is not accurate data, but say like 1 in 100 high schoolers um lose 2 hours of productive work every day due to their cell phones. So my app is gonna fix blah 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 or fix this issue through this. Like that's very specific. And when especially when like if you're trying to push out apps to like commercialize it, like and people like want to understand your app and you create like a slideshow or an informational like reference for it and you just say like you just have something written like I want to fix I want to help people focus better. Like when they read that they're going to think like they're not going to understand or they might not want to read on because of it because they don't think that you even know what exact issue you want to solve without even looking at your app. Even if your app is really great and they see the first, like, say, slide and the way you define the problem is very vague and unconvincing that it is an issue in today's world, they're not going to want to invest. They're not going to want to rate your project well, etc. So, yeah. Neglecting user experience. So, this happens. I mean, there's obviously constraints to this depending on what application you're using to create the app itself, but not considering like, for example, if you're trying to create an app that helps like financially like not like people who are not doing great financially and you say this can only be accessed on like the newest edition of like I don't know, like Apple's new release or something like that. Like it'll make it very difficult to access obviously because like if they're struggling financially they're not necessarily going to have the newest iPhone. They might not even have an iPhone. So if like say your app is only available on um Apple iOS and other people with different systems can't access it, that can also be an issue. So yeah, that's that. But ignoring UX design, it's like if you like have a design that's very confusing and like your like users are often confused or they need to try to go through the entire app before they can figure out what's going on, like that'll push people away from your idea because they're not going to want to keep looking. Like they're going to see like say your beginning screen pops to a random screen and there's no connection between them two. Like people might think, oh, like I don't why would I continue looking at this app when I can find another app that can probably do something similar? Because if I'm being honest, in today's world, apps can be innovative. They're definitely you can add new features to it that old ones don't have, but it is very, very, very difficult to appear an app out of like thin air. that's solving a problem that has never been thought about before. Like that's very difficult to do, especially for like a commercialized app. Like for research, that's going to be different, but like even research builds upon itself. So yeah. And then lack of iterative feedback. So if you're trying to really push your app out commercially, and you don't do prototyping and you don't get feedback from people around you before you just push it out to the market, um like your own view of your app, no matter how much time you spend trying to edit it, it's going to be different because you're biased. You create the app, so you're going to think you're going to have a more positive view of it than someone else would who's never seen the app and has no emotional connection to it, or no any connection really. So getting other people to look at it and actually taking and implementing their feedback will really help. And when by feedback, I mean like if especially if you give it to like say 3 to 5 people, and 2/3, if not all of them, all say that there's blank issue, then I would say that's an issue you do need to go through and think about how to fix it. But if say like out of like you survey 10 people and one person says one thing and he tells you to change the entire app, then maybe not necessarily. Like take everything with a grain of salt. But yeah. Okay, so now that I've went over some common mistakes, I'm gonna give you some advice for how to like further improve your app and just the idea of it even. So this first point is addressing one of the common mistakes. So define the problem clearly. Um, Identify the specific pain point it is trying to solve. So like the example I gave earlier about this is made up data, but like 1 in 100 teenagers losing 2 hours of productive time because of their phone or because of social media. Like identify a very specific thing. And yeah, that'll make people more interested in it, even if it's an issue they're not necessarily initially interested in. Like if you list in a very specific way, they're gonna kind of want to know more about it. Like it's gonna draw them in somehow. So yeah. Present a compelling solution. Yeah, so you really need to highlight your unique features in any proposal you do. And because if you don't very boldly highlight some unique features, like no one is going to really dig deep for you. Like you have to make them want to dig deep because everyone's busy, everyone has their schedule they need to be doing. Like if they see, like if you're trying to submit this for competition and a judge sees it and they have 200 projects to go over and you don't highlight your unique features, they're not going to want to continue. Because out of the 200 they can assume that there's one in there that they really really like, and if you don't highlight yours from the get-go, they're not going to want to continue reading because they have so much extra work to do like outside of yours. And then showcase user benefits. This is more for if you're trying to commercialize it. For competitions, it depends on what competition you're doing. Um, so maybe if you're doing like any appathon that's connected to like government or anything like that, you might want to bring out user benefits more because that's what the government cares about. They're trying to get these ideas to try to implement them, or like if they can sponsor your app or something like that. To like because they're trying to obviously like help a greater population, while like competitions, they are trying to look for like good ideas, but they're more thinking like I feel like they might look at the technical part more. So that's why I think for those you really have to highlight the unique features your app has, especially ones that require technical, like they're very like technically difficult, like any AI, anything like that other apps might not have. So yeah. And then conduct thorough market research. This also goes hand in hand with a mistake I mentioned. I think it was like not knowing your competitors well, but analyze similar existing apps. Like go over and find what is really different. Like compare side by side. Uh, don't be afraid to see similarities. because similarities can be good, because that means like if you see something you really like but you want to improve it and you have some similarities with them, that's a good thing. Because if you like the old version of it and you're trying to create a better version or build on it, having some of the features that you really liked from the old version will kind of set a very solid basis for the new solution you're trying to bring in. And then also identify like target audience. Like if you have like an inappropriate way of marketing, or like the way your app can be accessed is not fitting with the way your target audience would have access to, say, the internet or apps, that'll make it very difficult, obviously, for them to access it. Like if you're trying to target homeless populations by setting up a GPS for them to find shelter, but they're homeless and they don't have money and they don't have a phone, that'll make it very difficult, because how are they supposed to get the phone and get the app? So yeah. Focus on user experience. Yeah, so design mockups and like have a screen map, which I will go over later. I had that in my 2023 appathon proposal, like slideshow, and it gives judges and if anyone's looking to sponsor your app and you have something like that, because sponsors sometimes they'll be like more into the business side of things, or they might not be experts in creating apps, or they might not have any experience with creating apps. So having a mind map or like screen map of the way the app flows and very short descriptions of what each screen does or what each component does will make it much easier for them to see the point of your app. And if they really like your app, for them to see like unique points of it, like I really like this about it and stuff. So yeah. And then some competitions might ask you to provide future development or future improvements that you want to make, so they can see if they like the direction the app is headed in, because they know these competitions sometimes give you a very limited timeline to create apps. So if they really like an idea, they'll like to see that there are further improvements you want to make. And if they like those, it just gives them more of a reason to pick your app. So yeah. And some, like if you're trying to get commercialized, they might want those too, because like you see apps constantly get updated. Because there's always improvements that can be made, like bugs to fix and stuff. So definitely include that. And then so this is specifically, well, not, no, this also applies to when it's like any text inside of your app. Um, like if you're in a, like on this home screen and you're trying to like describe what the app does, don't use short bullet points and very compact, like don't use super compact language, like I don't know, like recycling coach. Like that's one bullet point, and the next bullet point is like help you recycle, like something like that. Like people are going to be not drawn to it. So yeah. And then the compelling narrative part is more for when you're trying to make a proposal through like a slideshow or like even on a Google Doc. Like be able to string everything together. Like here's the problem, and then here's how I'm going to fix it. And this is my solution is better than existing solutions because of this. And it helps the problem better because this new feature is included. And then go on to, describe the app and what's actually in it. So yeah. I mean, there's obviously a lot more, like a lot more pieces of advice that can be given out depending on your specific app. But those are just some guidelines that I would push out and I used for when I was creating my apps. And this slide is from, I believe, week 1 slideshow. This is just in here for reference if you don't want to go back to week 1 to find sources of inspiration. Because even if you have your app idea down and you really like it and people say it's great, that doesn't mean you can't benefit from looking at more sources of inspiration. You might see something and you like an app that might not be exactly related, but you see like a component you really like. That can give you inspiration for what to say include in future development or future improvements. So yeah. And I will be sharing the slideshow after class in Zoom and on Discord. So you'll have that for any reference you want to have. Okay, now I'm gonna quickly go through my Google Slides. That was the proposal for my 2023 Appathon app. So, okay, it's here. Okay. Just a bit of background if you don't know what this app is. You probably don't, but I won gold for youth individual in the 2023 MIT Summer Appathon. So that's some background to this app, I guess. So some credentials for when you're viewing this to see like this is kind of what judges want in like your proposals. So especially if you're doing a competition with the app you're creating in this workshop, like definitely pay attention to the components I have. But do go through like for if you are doing a competition, make sure you read everything related to it. Like make sure you're not missing anything that your specific competition is asking for because they might be different. So, they gave us a template for the summer appathon, so I'm following that. There's some additional features that we want you guys to include in your Google Slides that you're going to be making after this class, but this is kind of like the basics that you need. So I gave a brief overview. Someone unmuted. Okay. Okay. Okay, so I gave a brief overview and app description, but note that I didn't write it in a very bland language. Like I didn't say this app does blank 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 and lists like some functionalities. The way I wrote it was like I kind of stepped into like a persuasive and like marketing perspective. Even if you're doing for competitions and sometimes they like to see technical things, like having that language really draws whoever's like looking at your specific submission in because like this is like language that you might put on like a poster that you're sharing or like an ad that you have for a certain app. But yeah, tracking category, don't worry about these. This was just for the competition. And then this is kind of the background. It's called theme because that's what it was for the competition. Like you picked a theme, like a problem you wanted to address. Mine was just sustainability, which was given here, like the category. And then I delve into sustainability and practicing sustainable eating. So a very specific part within like a large problem. And there's just some background. Like again with the language. Sorry, I saw a message in the chat. My app, it's not available online because I did not push it out. Like I didn't publish it in a sense. But like if you go on MIT like the summer appathon like website, there's like a video demonstration of how it works, but I haven't pushed it out like for everyone to use. So yeah. So yeah, this is just some background on it, but notice how I kept like the persuasive language like at the core of my mission. Like I made it compelling for whoever was rating this to really feel like I really cared about what I was trying to do here. So yeah. And then this is a screen map that I was talking about earlier. Like if someone with no previous knowledge in anything CS related or even app like related and they saw this, they could understand what my app does. So like that's what you're really trying to do or like accomplish by creating a screen map. So yeah. And then that's easy for the judge to see like at best if they can see like something they really like so they want to continue. But yeah. And then I listed some technology that I used that might have been different from other people. Like I didn't list stuff like I used these components. Like I didn't say like I used the text box. Like that's not technically difficult. So they're not gonna care. Like you want to list like specific things you like specific things you use. Like Firebase DB. This is for because I had a login screen that I'll show you guys in a bit. So this just stored people's inputs on Firebase. I think that's the website. And so it just stored like so when you signed up, it could recall that stuff again, like your login information again, so you can use it again. And then ChatGPT API key, I use that for my AI chatbot I had in there. location sensor for the GPS thing I had, navigation for the GPS, barcode scanner for looking up products online, and then the clock. I think this was a component that was used. Okay, never mind. Okay, I think we're good. So the clock was used with the ChatGPT API key because this was I created this app before the App Inventor pushed out their chatbot. So I needed the clock with the OpenAI component or extension, not a component. But yeah. And then I just did, don't mind that, don't mind the red. But and then I just went through the slide, or not slides, the screens and more detail for the judger to see, and to gave some slightly longer descriptions of what I wanted to include and what I wanted to kind of accomplish with these screens. So I'm just gonna run through these, and then limitations. So these are things that they didn't ask for further improvements, so I did not list those. But these are just some limitations I had so that they understood that if I were to further develop this, these were things I would try to fix. But yeah, and then acknowledgements. So yeah, that was mine. But okay, that's it for the slides there. But for you guys this week, for your homework, this is the template that I have linked in here, I believe. Yes, it's linked in here. So yeah. So I'm gonna push this out and it's gonna be view only. Just make a copy of it. And then this is just the structure I want you guys to follow for your app proposal, like Google Slides. But like to make it compelling, or to make it like to market yourself best, like maybe go to like Slides Go and find like a background theme or like fonts that really fit your app and like what it's trying to solve. Like for for my slides for MIT Appathon, I couldn't do anything with because they gave a background they wanted us to use. But like I'm trying to think of, so there was this app walkthrough I made for this app called Recycling Helper. And I made the background very like, there were green, there was blue. So it was like colors of like different like trash categories so that it would match the theme of what was going on. But yeah, here I put this is kind of the max 50 words is more of a guideline. It's not a strict, I guess, requirement. It's just if you have more than 50 words in like your app introduction, like many people won't read it. So keeping it 50 words will kind of guarantee that people will read most of it and get what you're trying to say. So yeah, the problem, and then I'm not gonna go through these. We are running a little bit low on time, but I'm just on these slides I included like what it's supposed to have. Basically, like anything you need to include here is listed. So design process, screen map, and with the screen map, I believe you can just use Canva, which is what yeah, it's just Canva here. So you can use that and create like a document and then export that as like an image. And then you can create mind maps through there. But that's that. And then features, like any unique features like ChatGPT or like Firebase DB that you included. And screenshot and description, depending on like do this like this little combination here for every single screen. Don't skip any screens. So because we want to see the full app, obviously. Like we want to see it the way a customer would see it. So include that. And then do like this description shouldn't be like a whole paragraph. Because no one's gonna read that. So it's best to keep it short and simple. Don't use very complex language or jargon because that just makes it harder to read, and then people will lose motivation reading it depending on like yeah. And then recording of the app in action. So if you can, I know some people their computers allow them to run like on your computer, like run the app. But like mine doesn't work for some reason. But or you can just use like say like if you have a phone and an iPad, like record the iPad that's like going through the app with your phone. So that'll work. As long as we can see what's going on, that's fine. And then advantages, so unique selling points, limitations, or like this, like even like including like a Venn diagram and really like bolding like what yours does differently from existing apps, that can really help. It doesn't necessarily have to be like in a very structured way, like writing bullet points for what unique selling points you have. Like really take creative liberties with this template. Like it looks really bland for a reason because we want you to take your creative liberty with it depending on your personal taste and your app. So yeah. Feel free to change any fonts, color, background, change as much as you possibly can, honestly, to make it more personalized to your app and the issue you're trying to solve. Current limitations, or like include maybe challenges faced during development if you think it'll help you convince them that this app is better. Don't like include challenges that might make you seem like might do the reverse effect of what marketing should do. Like don't include like, oh, this took me really, really long time to create. Like that's not gonna help you. So yeah. And the future improvements and then a conclusion. So yeah. For this one, like maybe even come up with like a slogan, like a quick slogan for your app that makes it usually really memorable for people who are reading through your slideshow. So yeah. I believe this is it. Okay. Yeah, so your homework, which I've basically just gone through, like create an app proposal using this Google Slides template, which is linked right here where it's underlined for your app idea. And then remember to include a video, and the top 3 will be given an award, and App In Club officers will be judging these proposals. And depending on how much you had done or had planned, or how much of your app you had done, I say estimate time for completion. It could maybe even take 4 hours, like 1 to 4 hours, depending on where you're at with your project. But yeah, that is all I have for today. Thank you guys for listening, and I will push out the Google Slides for this class in the Discord right now. So yeah. Okay, now Tony's gonna say one last thing actually before you leave.
I just wanted to give a reminder to everyone who is applying, or if you guys do not know, that the App In Club Office application is currently open right now, and the round 1 ended, and that was dedicated to just App In Club members because the acceptance rate is a bit higher for the round 1. Round 2 is open to the public, meaning that it's advertised on our Twitter, LinkedIn, so it's basically open to anyone. So I guess the acceptance rate might be slightly harder to get in, right? But regardless, the office application is open till like the end of August. If you have applied, great. If you're not, then definitely feel free to check it out if you're interested. And another thing is that if you're not applying for officer, our chapter club application is always open year long. So if you're interested in establishing a local chapter for App In Club, make sure to do so, as we're trying to currently support and build more local communities across the US and across the world, really create a local impact. And with that said, that basically wraps up what I wanted to say. And if you haven't already, definitely make sure to join our Discord. And yeah, and thanks to Michelle for giving this talk today. All right, have a good weekend, everyone.
Bye everyone, thanks for coming again. And if you're still here, I just posted the link for the class slides on Discord. So yeah.